everyone. I'm here with Adrienne Michelle, and Adrienne has a business called Inner Revolution Healing, and I'm very excited to speak with you today, Adrienne. Thanks for hanging out with me.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So please, Adrienne, tell us what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I am a health and nervous system coach, and I help women over 40 reset their hormones and nervous system with a 90-day system that I have had many women go through so that they can feel turned on in life, love, and business. Because man, when you get to 40, you want to make sure you have things dialed in. Yeah.
Absolutely. And even 50. I am proud to say I'm 53 and I made it this far unscathed. Well, maybe a little bit scathed, but
Well, yeah, I'm on the cusp. I'm 49. So it's like, I'm just saying over 40, there's a difference. There's a transition that we go through, right? That's like when we hit perimenopause, things start changing. We can't operate the same way that we were before. Just, we don't have the same cushioning in our hormones. So it's like we have to pivot a little bit if we want to live our the way we want to live.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed that for myself too, even though the journey through my perimenopause and menopause was actually fine. It was okay. But I noticed I really have to do things differently. Can you explain a little bit of, like, give us an example of what some of the journeys you've seen in your practice?
Yeah, for sure. So lots of times women who are either visionary or they're type A, they have big plans for themselves kind of thing. They come through my door because they're used to really pushing through, and or just mamas who were really juggling it all with their family, with work, and now they have teenage kids, aging parents, and they don't have the same cushioning in their hormones. So, they'll describe things like they're feeling at a loss as to what's going on with their body. Like, why am I gaining weight? Why am I exhausted? Why am I snapping all the time? And it's like, well, your estrogen and progesterone are on doing this thing right now. And if you don't change some things, you can't operate the same way you did in your 20s and 30s. And so what's really cool right now is I'm seeing more and more women, even in their 30s, who are starting to be interested in the actual cycles of how their body works and supporting that with proper nutrition, better lifestyle choices so that they can move through the next phase of their life, not suffering with all of these symptoms and feeling like they're on the verge of collapse. So that's kind of what I do when women come through my door. I do an individualized assessment with them because everybody's background is different. Everything, there are some key pillars and a foundation of what all of us need. It's our physiological design. We are mammals, we are humans, and we need these things to function at an optimal level. But other than that, there's a lot of individual components. What happened in your life? What's your lifestyle now? And then really go through this process of getting the things in order that need to be in order for you to be able to thrive, right? For you to be able to show up and feel confident, whether it's you're going to get family pictures, whether it is I want to be able to step into the next phase of my life in a business perspective, having the energy, the clarity, the focus to do what I want to do. Lots of women end up starting over in there. It's a thing that I see a lot as well. I ended up same thing, separation, divorce, starting over, recreating their life, and you want to do it from a solid foundation. And honestly, part of the reason for that, that I see over and over again, is because this is a huge, also like reassessment of our life that women tend to, like in their 40s, start looking, going like, what is their, and you know what, your hormones are actually, I don't want to say, sometimes people say they're forcing you to do that. I say they're guiding you. Your hormones are guiding you to do a life inventory and go like, what is actually working here and what is not.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
are some of the, can you go more into detail about what your 3 pillars include?
Yeah, for sure. So there are 3 pillars in the program, and I just find these are key, and they're threads that I've experienced and worked with women throughout my life as like a gut health coach, traditional foods teacher, all of these different things. But the first one is hormone and physiologically appropriate nutrition. We are not men.
Yes, we are not
We,
men.
we are not men. So that's, I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer, but the fact of the matter is we run on, as women, we run on completely different rhythms than men. Men run on a circadian rhythm. We run on an infradian rhythm when our cycles are regular. The things start to shift, but women still we just run on a different rhythm. We're more, I think, in tune with the seasons, in tune with nature, all of those things. So hormone appropriate nutrition is really about supporting our hormones, often through gut health. Really, really important to know how your gut health affects things. And it's such like low hanging fruit. I always say like gut health is like, it's so simple to make the shifts. And so definitely that's sort of what I think of as the foundation before we go into the deeper nervous system work. A lot of us are carrying stored survival stress in our system, whether it's small t or big T traumas. And our body cannot down regulate unless we've dealt with that. So what that means to us too is that our hormones, if our stress hormones are going, spiking, that it has an inverse relationship with our sex hormones. So I wrote a post a while back talking about this, and it's like, okay, so these two things cannot coexist at the same time. So we need to, once we get this foundation in place with nutrition, so we feel that physiological sense of safety, there's less inflammation in the body, our body is well nourished, we can think straight because we're not on that blood sugar roller coaster, then that gives us a little bit of a platform to go in and do some nervous system work and to learn like the foundational things. And it's not what people think. So it's really interesting because there are some aspects of the work that maybe people have read about before, but a lot of it actually is learning how to orient to pleasure, to joy, to what feels good, because we've got that danger map, that trauma map, those neural pathways that are so, we're used to going here. It's like, hey, let's learn to go here, but let's do it in a way that doesn't overload your system. So that's pillar number 2. And pillar number 3 is around lifestyle. It's appropriate movement for this stage of our life. Like, hey, hours of cardio aren't gonna be doing it for your physiology right now. You're skimping on sleep or not able to sleep because like insomnia and sleep issues are really, really common over 40 as women approach menopause or go into menopause. Sleep issues are very common. So we got to get those things in order. And I kind of call those 3 pillars like, they're like the Holy Trinity. They hold everything up.
Absolutely. And since my interests lie and I'm expanding my interests, but my interests lie in the food and nutrition part of it. Is there a best meal for a woman over 40 to feel good, to regulate your hormones, to just get rid of the anxiety?
Yeah, so there are a few key things that I always this is like always my recommendations. And the first thing is not to skip breakfast. If you're getting up and you're slugging back that coffee first thing in the morning, you're skipping breakfast, we're going to like amp up the cortisol and adrenaline in our system immediately. And what we want to do is create some stability for the day. So I'll let you know how this connects sort of to the end of our day, but everything sort of starts at the beginning of the day. So 30 grams of protein at the beginning of the day. So whether that doesn't really matter what it is. I always think it's easy to get it with some eggs or some like animal-based meats or protein. So yeah, 30 grams of protein, not just at breakfast, hopefully within an hour of waking. But if you get 30 grams of protein at each meal, you are going to be stabilizing your blood sugar, because in perimenopause, we can become insulin resistant. So we really have to start watching things. And when I've had so many women who are like, oh my God, like, am I like starting to like, I'm having memory issues, I'm feeling brain fog, all of that. And then as soon as they start eating protein at the beginning of the day and with every meal, things start to shift, even if it's just at the beginning of the day to start with. But major shift, they start to notice their energy is more stable throughout the day, their clarity, their energy. And then at the end of the day, when we've been holding it all together, we've been going, and then it's like, so what do a lot of people do? They're like, and they also haven't eaten. So you start eating, you start snacking because it's self-soothing.
Yeah.
And your body is like, feed me. Like, we just snacked here and there. So for sure, the main thing over 40 for women to start recalibrating their hormones is paying attention to how much protein they eat. The second thing is adding some fermented foods for gut health. It's a no-brainer. It's an addition. It's not something that you're taking away. So when people are starting with fermented foods, I always suggest starting with a tablespoon at a meal. It acts as a digestive enzyme. It acts as a food-based probiotic that can actually colonize our gut. Those probiotic pills are fine in some regards, but it's not what I recommend at all to help us have vibrant gut health, because they're certain strains, we don't know whether it will be synergistic with our body, but what have we been doing since the beginning of the time? What are we designed to do? We have to eat. So why not have, and it costs a fraction of what probiotic pills cost. Like, if you can get local fermented foods, otherwise, just look for a live, raw probiotic kraut that you would like, put a tablespoon with, start with one meal and then work your way up to each meal. And you're going to start to see and feel changes because you're getting those microbes working for you. The gut is a center of hormone production. So we want to get all of those things in order. So those are two simple things that women can do. Like, if they started doing them and went, okay, I'm going to put my mind to this for like a week, maybe 3 weeks, and I'm just going to get curious about whether that actually makes a difference for me. You'll be surprised at how quickly things start to change.
A lot of the people that I work with do not have a clue on what to make for themselves. So let's jam some ideas on
For
a good
sure.
breakfast. So you
Okay.
mentioned eggs, you mentioned animal meat. What else? Just because there's a lot of people in my realm that are vegetarian. What
Right.
else can we bring up?
Yeah. So I really do focus quite heavily on like high quality um animal protein because it has other cofactors that help with women's hormones. So while I do advocate for some introduction of things like beans and lentils into the diet because it actually helps bind with adrenaline and cortisol, the fiber in it, and take it out. It's much easier as well to get 30 grams of protein from like a palm-sized serving of steak or chicken
So it is.
than eating an enormous amount of like beans and lentils, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So there are options, but the thing that I recommend for people, and I was just posting about this yesterday because a lot of women are like, I can't make a meal every day. This is crazy. So I designed a system and it was actually because I needed it. My kids were getting older. I wasn't like making meals like big suppers every night. I have one kid that's 19 and one 16, but for anybody who's on the go, I recommend a system that's called component-based meal planning. So what I do is with clients is I give them a handout and it talks about these things that you would batch cook essentially on whatever day is helpful for you. And it's not what you would think. It's not like soup here and chili here and this and this. It's like, we're going to do a pan of roasted vegetables. We're going to prep this like container of like chicken or ground beef or whatever. You're going to make meatballs out of it. And you're going to make like, just taco meat or whatever it is. You're going to make a salad dressing with a healthy oil in it. So I really advocate traditional fats over seed oils, which
Go
are,
into that a little bit more for our viewers, please.
yeah, for sure. So this was really something that like for many, many years of my life, I actually taught a traditional foods teacher training where I helped women learn all of the traditional food skills that were cross-cultural. So what things were common across all cultures that nourished families basically since the beginning of time, right? So there were some commonalities to it. And one thing is that we would use healthy traditional fats. So in a climate like ours, that would be a lot of animal-based fats, lard, tallow, butter, but we do have access to other healthy fats that are non-inflammatory. And I'll talk about this in a minute about just if we just see how these things are processed, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So coconut oil, ghee are other ones, olive oil, avocado oil. So if you think about these things, if you think about like butter, it is still made the same way, essentially. Not everybody hand churning it, but if you were to, and I used to show this video of how, butter versus, and I'm going to say canola oil, so these seed oils. So butter, it's just like they put the cream in a vat with some salt and then turn, it becomes butter, right? If you squeeze an olive, you can press it and the oil just starts like running down your hand, right? So it doesn't take a lot to get these oils, these fats out of these foods. But if you were to look at the way that canola is processed, you cannot squeeze canola and have oil come out of it. So It goes through a process called RBD. It is refined, it is bleached, it is deodorized. So if you had canola oil that wasn't deodorized, you'd be like, "Ugh, ugh," because it would smell so bad. I'm very vivid with
Yeah.
my ways that I, so, and looks like a sludge as it moves through things. And so these seed oils are very, very inflammatory to the body. They've kind of flipped the balance of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in our bodies. Like, they're just in all processed foods. And if you actually look at the history of why these fats, these oils, are so prevalent right now, it goes back to subsidies, agricultural subsidies. So if you look at why is soy oil so prevalent in the US, it's because it is subsidized by the government. So you just have to track these things back. But then there's like a huge like marketing machines behind them. So that confuses people, because it's like, well, I thought these are supposed to be healthy. Well, I mean, I always think you don't have to look any further than what sustained every generation prior to the introduction of these like massively processed and heavily processed oils, right?
Exactly.
So easy to access these things. Still, like, butter, obviously you can get at any grocery store, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. And they're not just in boutique health food stores anymore. You can even get these things in like Costco, right?
Exactly.
And someday, if you're feeling really peppy and you want to learn to render tallow and lard, it's actually a fun skill. I'm weird that way. I love doing stuff like that. Part of the reason is it keeps us connected to our food. And I do think that that is a huge missing piece for people today, and why they are confused, why it's so confusing about food, because you're just reading a book or watching an expert on TV talk about something, but we have expertise that is in our own DNA. It is our legacy, and we can, we just really have to look no further than what our great grandma maybe was doing to give us some clues. So yeah, so that's kind of my the recommendations that I make around fats. And those good fats are so incredibly important to nourish and nurture women's nervous
It's
system.
interesting that you talk about tallow. One of my best friends just texted me this morning, and she said she bought a whole bunch of stuff to render her own tallow. So like it's coming. A lot of people though that you and I know don't have time to do that. So we have to get connected to the local farmers and our local producers. And if it's not accessible, we have to try to make it accessible, right?
Yeah. So I have a couple of tips there too, if you think it would be helpful for people. One of them is, it's like even getting connected to local retailers who focus on those things, right? Or artisanal makers. So tallow actually is not just fantastic for like making like French fries and stuff like that, or sauteing vegetables, because it's like a high heat fat too, right? But it's really great for skincare. So, so just that's the one thing I want to throw in there about tallow as well. But yeah, the thing is that get connected to your local retailers. There is something called the Weston A. Price Foundation. They have chapters all over the world. You can get in touch with your local chapter leader if you have one in your area, and they will point you to either farmers who deliver to the city and have a drop off that you can order online. And then just knowing those smaller retailers that carry rendered tallow and lard. And if you're, the other thing is too, is if you're making things like broth, I always keep that thick layer of chicken fat that's on the top, and I saute vegetables with that. Like, 'cause when you put your broth into the fridge, there's often this layer that forms on top. And that's called schmaltz. It's also a traditional fat. And I just save that because I don't always, I mean, I want some of it in my soup, but I'm getting these like beautiful pastured chickens from farmers, and there's this thick layer of fat. I'm like, I'm going to save some of that for my vegetables to saute vegetables or whatnot. So that's another way that you can access these things. Get together with other women and learn a skill, make it fun. Like, I want to see the revival of like kitchen parties and women doing things together and learning these skills together, because when we do that, we're going to be able to pass this down to the next generation. That's the whole reason I started doing what I am doing, because I was like, I want to have these skills to be able to not only nourish myself deeply, but to nourish my family and my community. And when a kid see us doing these things, they might not do it right away, but they will remember.
They will remember. This
Yeah.
is why I got into what I do too, because I found that a lot of people in my community, they didn't know how to cook. And I thought, oh dear, like, and then you could see how a person couldn't handle their daily stresses because they have poor nutrition. So in my videos, I teach the big batch cooking, like you get chicken and you make it, and then you use some of it, and then you preserve some of it, like freeze it or whatever for the next day. I love that whole concept, and I'm connected to the local makers and producers, and I really just want to get that word out that it's possible, it's easy, and it supports your body as you move through the changes in your life, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing is like, sometimes it's not a popular message, but it's like, pick your heart. Like, do you want to feel like junk, or could we shift this idea of food as a chore to like a devotional practice to yourself, a devotional practice to your family, and be willing to experiment and get curious about what works for you. Yeah, like I only like batch cooking every second week, and so I have to make more. Or it was so good when my friend Brenda was over and we did this all together. It went in half the time. I'm going to see if she wants to do that again next month, kind of thing. Get curious. It might not just be perfect the first time, but give yourself room to play and enjoy this, because it's going to pay off in spades. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, in your health and in your budget too.
Absolutely, the budget part is very real. So I love this conversation. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, they can get in touch with me on Instagram. So my handle there is _ Adrienne, ADRIENNE _ Michelle. They can also reach out to me on Facebook, Inner Revolution Healing. And just if you pop over to either one of those profiles, pop me a hello in my DMs. I actually really focus on creating community. So I'm not one of those people that just post content and it's just like, yeah, whatever, I'm a big whatever. I can't. It's like, community is so important. Connection is so important, because that's what creates the safety in our nervous system. That's what creates like all this, like, that really allows us to flourish. So yeah, I'm an open door. Say hello, and if you want more information, if you have some questions about your hormones and nervous system, pop that question over to me, and I will be sure to take
Awesome.
some time to chat with you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adrienne. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, and I appreciate chatting with you. This was great. Thank you.
Awesome.